They call it Story Monday.
And welcome back to Okay, so this one time, okay. You know, the whole idea with Beat It was all about the fiber optics outside. So it looked super freaky with fiber optic fibers lit up coming out of my hair and surrounding my guitar. However, the first time I played it, when they turned the lights out at rehearsal in this pitch black sound stage, I couldn't see my frets. It's a little bit of a challenging solo, and if you're flying blind, it's even more of a challenge. So I leaned over really far to look at my frets so I could just make it through the song. Then I got glow-in-the-dark tape, and I've been using it ever since, because sometimes between songs there is a complete blackout and you see nothing. And if the next song is supposed to be started by guitar and you're a half fret off, it can super suck. Super suck. You might notice that every episode I'm doing something a little bit different, upgrading to 2.0 and 2.5. Well, my friend said, you have two iPhones. I have an old one and a new-ish one. It's only 2 years old. So now I can have a separate camera angle like my hero, Stephen Colbert. The very last rehearsal, that was a quasi-dress rehearsal for me, they had my Beat It costume ready, and I ran after the song before it to go get changed and get the fiber optics put in my hair. And when he called out the next song, I wasn't ready. So I ran across the stage with no shoes, and in the dark, I fell over a monitor, face plant, and my guitar neck split right down the middle. That's the first time I heard, if you have a crap last rehearsal, you're gonna have a great opening night. And it was great. People often ask me how I felt when we did our first show, because the most people I had played for before was maybe 2,000, and that was pretty rare. I was just playing in clubs with mostly original bands. So I think anybody that's performed knows what it's like when you're nervous and your fingers aren't connected and you have the stress hormone running through your system and can't remember lyrics or notes. Fortunately, because we had rehearsed so much, 2 months straight, many hours a day, I remember the anxiety during the day of wondering what it would feel like. But once we hit downbeat, it was just like at rehearsal, and it was all about performing. There was no question of what's the next chord, what's the next song. It was so nailed. We'd done so many repetitions that we were good to go. We could put 100% of our energy into just entertainment and soaking it up and putting it out. One other thing about the first time I played Beat It with the lights off, because that's kind of burned into my DNA, is one of the background singers said, "I asked for a Bud Light." And then this other time, okay, we were doing some pyro testing, and it turns out some of the pyro shot off a little too high and hit one of the guys in the rigging. And Saida Garrett, always the comedian, immediately got on the mic when everybody else was silent and looking around like, is he okay, is he okay? And said something like, from the legal commercials, "My name is Larry Williams, and I made $5.5 million with the help of the law firm of so-and-so and so-and-so." Definitely broke the ice, and thankfully the guy was not injured. One of my favorite Michael stories is you can really tell somebody's personality when they're under stress. We were doing, I think it might have been the history tour, where they had what they called the cherry picker. It was a big arm that would go out over the audience, and he jumped on that for Beat It, and he had this almost like a cape that would be flying in the wind, and there was a fan underneath him blowing the cape up. And all of a sudden, instead of going out over the audience, it turned and damn near dumped him off. And once again, people are like, "Oh, crap." The boss is going down. And so they all were on the radio. They got him back in safely. He got on the stage and walked up to the mic and said, "You know, I don't mean to pull rank, but this stuff needs to be fixed." Most people would not be that calm. There was a lot of one-of-a-kind surprise effects that we had to sign a non-disclosure so it would be a surprise on opening night. When he flew out from the stage at the end of the show's history tour, there was all kinds of fun stuff that he just didn't want the surprise to be ruined. We went to Russia a couple of times on different Michael tours, maybe all 3 tours, I don't remember. But it was pretty exotic to get there. And we had our equipment, ridiculous amount of equipment that took up 26 semi-trucks. That number always sticks in my head. So we needed the biggest cargo planes in the world to cart that around. And we landed on the tarmac, and I remember we had to sit in our seats while the looked like military got on board and looked at everybody's documents. It was kind of intimidating. And while we were there, we were told it's pretty dangerous. I wouldn't go walking by yourself or even taking a taxi by yourself. So we were all pretty much hotel dwellers the whole time we were there. And then I heard a story after we left that there was an agreement about how much it cost to park the Antonov planes while we were there doing our shows. And all of a sudden, when it came time to leave, they added another 0 to the budget. It was pretty gangster when we were there. And I remember Dory and Holly, too. When we went to check out of a hotel in Moscow, somebody said he had used $100 or $200 worth of phone calls, and they wanted him to pay up. He hadn't used the phone at all. And it kind of went back and forth and back and forth. And eventually he paid because they weren't going to let us go. You never know what you're going to run into when you're in another country. The things you take for granted in America or in the Western world, whoo boy, anything can go once you leave these borders. I remember back on the Bad tour calling my parents from Germany for about 10 minutes. And this was before the internet. It cost me $60 from a hotel to call from Germany to San Diego. I didn't call much after that. It's interesting, touring all these years, the internet changed everything. It's so much easier to tour because you have that social connection to whoever you want, whenever you want, except for the hours. I did wake my mother up when I was in Hawaii one time. I got the 3 hours from the Pacific coast to Hawaii backwards. I think I woke her up about 1 or 2 in the morning. Oops! The band was so spoiled on those tours. We got to take pretty much anything we wanted around the world with us. And everybody in the band, I think, had some sort of recording studio that we would have set up because we would have many, many days off. We only played 2 or 3 days a week, so there was plenty of time to goof off. I spent most of my time practicing or checking out where we were because everywhere we were was exotic. The only time I had ever left the country was to go to Mexico. So getting to go to all these different countries in Europe and Japan, Thailand, India, it was just phenomenal. I remember I had a trunk, a whole trunk. This is way before the iPhone and iPods. I had 2 notebooks full of CDs, of course a CD player. I think I had a Fostex 4-track cassette machine, and a bunch of books. You know, now all that stuff can be in your iPhone, and I feel sorry for the poor bastards that had to lift that because we were so spoiled that as long as we had our stuff packed and outside the hotel room door, we didn't have to lift it or see it. It would just appear in the next hotel room in the next city. I missed those days like hell. And the trunk was just one of 2 I had. I had a giant suitcase, probably the biggest you could get, full of clothes and things to entertain myself on days off.
back now. Cheers.